Tonight, a complicated disease with many misconceptions. But for a young Sioux City mother, MS is her new normal. Kids aren't supposed to worry about adult problems. Still, there are many children dealing with Crohn's disease. Have you heard of a doula? It comes from an ancient concept of women helping other women labor during childbirth. And this old idea is seeing a surge in popularity locally. Sometimes health struggles turn into a story of strength. 13-year-old Bella Wall has a genetic disorder that could have made it impossible to do a lot of things girls her age enjoy. But dance is her passion, and she's found her inner fighter through her journey to pursue her dream. This is a design meeting, and Bella is in charge.
Hey, tell me about this thing, would you please?
This Sioux City 13-year-old is the creative mind behind her dance costumes.
This is going to be like just one piece.
Taking them from ideas.
I just looked at images of dresses.
To sketches.
And I liked the short in the front and long in the back.
And imagining what they'll look like on the dance floor. Isabella Wall has been dancing since she was 6, but growing up hasn't been easy for her. Bella was born with a genetic disorder called Hurler syndrome, also known as MPS. The condition comes with a host of complications, mostly with how her joints work. This is the kind of auto-injector that David uses, a little different from your traditional EpiPen. This is just a tester so I can show you how it works.
If you are ready to use, pull off red safety guard. To inject, place black end against outer thigh, then press firmly and hold in place for 5 seconds.
So many people on RAGBRAI who are overcoming an obstacle in their own life. I met a 33-year-old father today who's cherishing every moment he has with his family, and here's why.
I have a brain tumor. I was diagnosed 3.5 years ago after having a seizure in the office.
In his third RAGBRAI, John Mahoney from Chicago has a new mission. He's riding to celebrate life with his wife and 11-month-old son. They don't know what the future holds after surgery, chemo, and radiation, but they know how to enjoy what they have.
As you could probably imagine, having a brain tumor is pretty stressful, and I find that on the bicycle, it all melts away. I'm hoping that through pulling my son and riding with my wife and my father, that will show people that life goes on, and it goes on positively.
John says 98% of people with his condition don't make it, but he's determined to live whatever years he's given to the fullest, and RAGBRAI plays a big part in that.
You know, after you get a brain tumor or cancer diagnosis, you know, life becomes a little bit simpler in a way. You don't need the biggest house, you don't need the biggest, flashiest car, you just need survival.
Sort of like the philosophy on the ride, one leg at a time, mile by mile, with help and encouragement from thousands of supporters. Tonight, we start with a condition that affects thousands of children and adults in our country. And one Siouxland family hopes shining a light on type 1 diabetes will someday lead to a cure. More about Drew's story in Your Health Matters.
Okay, all right. There you go, bud.
Drew Weber is such a pro at his medical routine, he's almost too quick for our cameras.
180. That's a good number.
With 8 to 10 blood sugar checks each day, much of this is old hat for this 8-year-old who's been dealing with type 1 diabetes since before he was 2.
It gives me insulin.
Drew has a pump that gives his body the insulin that his pancreas can't produce. That helps keep his blood sugar regulated, but it's still a daily struggle to avoid the highs and lows. On this day, for example, his number dipped down as low as 32, which makes his stomach hurt and zaps his energy.
It's hard.
Why is it hard, honey?
You get shots.
Luckily, Drew and his school nurse at Dakota Valley Elementary have managing his condition down to a science, knowing the exact amount of carbs or insulin he'll need to get back to feeling better.
Put that away. Sometimes their blood sugars can be very low, and then they need to have additional food to bring their blood sugars up. Or they can go the other way and become very high, where they would need to have insulin to bring down that high blood sugar.
Drew is actually one of several young people with diabetes that Jean Kaiser takes care of. Each year, more than 15,000 children in the U.S. are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and as many as 1 million kids and adults are living with the disease. Unlike type 2 diabetes, its onset has nothing to do with lifestyle or diet. Back at home after school, no one knows the burdens of this disease like Mom.
Oh, are you that low? Are you really?
Sarah Weber constantly has Drew's health concerns on her mind, along with the already demanding job of raising 4 kids. And what is routine now began as a very scary time when Drew was diagnosed with diabetes at just 17 months old.
One morning, he was walking around following me, wanting his sippy cup with milk in it. So I gave him milk. Then he wanted another glass, and I said, no, if you're going to have more milk, you need to have water. And I thought that usually was enough of a deterrent not to give him any more. And he wanted the water. Then he followed me upstairs to the bathroom sink and wanted his cup refilled again. And
Drew was in a critical diabetic situation. Thankfully, Sarah recognized the signs right away. That's because it's something her family had already been dealing with. Her husband, John, also has type 1 diabetes.
We had a tester at home, of course, so we checked his blood sugar at home, and it was over 600.
A normal reading would be closer to 100. Years later, Sarah says the fear she felt during that time has faded, but what doesn't go away is the all-consuming nature of this disease.
I mean, I just don't want anything to be harder for him than it has to be. You don't want that for any of your kids.
But for an active little boy who won't sit on the sidelines, this family is making sure diabetes won't determine how he lives his life.
But we've never used that as an excuse for what he can't do, and I hope that he keeps that attitude.
And then they led me into their room to see him. And there was my boy. He was dead. He was already cold.
Tammy Summers is in the midst of unbelievable grief after her teenage son's death just last night. But Tammy wants to tell her story to help other families. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jenna Rehnstrom, and we start tonight with the message of a heartbroken mother. Tammy Summers' 18-year-old son, a senior at West High School, died last night. Austin McLeod was found unresponsive at War Eagle Park after his mom says he and some friends went there to smoke K2. Austin had just picked up his cap and gown yesterday and was getting ready to graduate. Now Tammy, as she struggles to make sense of what happened, is reaching out to do one of the first things that came to her mind: warn other parents. Here's her story. Did you know your son had been using drugs?
No. No, he had gotten in a little bit of trouble. They had him on probation, and he was, doing what he needed to do. No, I didn't. He said he would never do that,
Tammy Summers remembers telling her son she loved him on Thursday. Those are the last words she got to say. Austin McLeod, a senior at West High in Sioux City, was in a car with some friends Thursday night at War Eagle Park. Tammy says her son and others were smoking K2, a synthetic form of marijuana. Around 11 o'clock, a call came into police that there was trouble. Tammy tells us about hearing the news from a doctor at the hospital.
And he had said that Austin had a drug overdose, and they were called to the site because he was unresponsive.
Austin and 3 other teenage boys ended up in the hospital, but Tammy's son was already dead. As she struggles to figure out what to do next, she says she had to spread this message.
Kids need to be aware that it's not just a fun-time drug, because Austin's dead.
K2 is a concoction of dried herbs sprayed with chemicals. It's illegal in Iowa, which authorities say has helped curb the problem, but it is still out there and it's very dangerous.
There's no regulation on these drugs as far as what substances are put into them, so it's hard to know how people are going to react to them and what their reaction could be. And we've seen everything from panic attacks to cardiac arrest, heart attacks, and stuff like that. So these substances are a huge health risk, and they're a concern to us.
And for Tammy, who now can only hold tightly to her son's senior pictures and dream about the future he could have had, she hopes her grief will spark a conversation between other parents and their teens about the dangers of synthetic drugs.
People are out there and they say different things about what they think about K2, but my son is dead because of it. So it's really something everybody needs to, listen to this and let Austin's story be told.